We did it. First Zoom sesh of 2023. I can't believe it. Lindsay here, your guide in the Awakened Feminine Collective. I have the lovely Darcy Meehan here if you want to say hello for a brief moment.
Hello. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm saying it's happening. Marking a milestone. Okay.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm super excited to have this conversation here today. I've known Darcy, gosh, how long has it been? Almost 3 years?
It's been a few years. Yep. And lifetimes, I think.
Yes. And if you know Sasha Sterling in this community, this is Sasha's beautiful sister. You could probably tell from the resemblance if you're watching this on the video. We are going to be repurposing this for podcasts as well, because it's extremely important information and intuitive wisdom that we're going to be sharing today. And I love this because this came directly from your website, claimyouroriginstory.com, Darcy. And I loved this, where we're going to be talking all about origin stories today. And if you don't know what that is, Darcy's going to share it all with you. And I encourage you, regardless of where you're at on your journey of life, business, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, to just tune in and listen if you don't know what an origin story is. And this is what I wrote here, where soul and strategy come together for purpose-led living. And these are Darcy's words. So this is what it means to be in the creative process of co-creating and generating and attuning to your origin story. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. And again, we're in this time of where there's focality, where people are starting fresh, where people are, in introspection around the previous year and looking at their lives, right? This is such a powerful time of year to be looking at what is working, what is not working, where did I come from, where am I going, who am I now? And I'm getting full body chills because you are such a goddess at what you do. And you're so brilliant at your work. And I can tell that you love it and it's very meaningful to you. And I can't wait for our community to hear a little bit more. So if you want to say hello and a little bit more about yourself, and then we can dive in.
For sure. Lindsay, thank you so much. This is one of my favorite things. Really. I feel like I'm so in my lane, right? Like aligned in the zone where I belong. And that's come through a lot of hardship that has been reflected on. Which is a large part of the origin story process, actually, of really looking back and going, where am I and how did I get here? And am I where I want to be? And what's shaped me and what matters to me? And, you're such a leader in that, of really looking inward and then connecting outward in ways that are intentional. My name's Darcy Meehan. I'm the founder of the Claim Your Origin Story method. And I am Sasha Sterling's sister. She's one of my favorite people, my lifetime best friend. I live in Santa Monica, California, which was 2 plot twists, got me from Northern California to Southern California. I'm born and raised here. And if you can't find me, I'm usually on my yoga mat, or I left my phone at home and I'm walking at the beach with my dog. Writing is something that means a lot to me, and connecting people with who or what they need by holding up a mirror is really what I'm dedicated to in lots of different forms. With this, the old school pen and papers is my happy place. So.
And you're so good at it. And it's like such a relief because it's painful. So, it's painful to kind of go back and revisit at times, especially when we're still in a healing time. And of course, we're ever evolving and expanding. And it is supportive to be witnessed and to not, and to have somebody reflect back without not trying to fix, and to kind of pull out of you what you're trying to say. But sometimes that comes out as like a blubbering mess on a piece of paper. You're really able to pull out the golden threads and able to really articulate what we're trying to say, when sometimes it's almost like when you're in it, it's more challenging than if somebody can just witness you. And I love your process. So there's so many questions that I want to ask, but I think let's start with what is an origin story so people can start to kind of feel into what is this? And is this something that I want to, start to explore during this phase of my life?
Absolutely. Um, I love questions. I said this before to you, and I've said it over and over. Questions are a love language. They invite conversation, and conversation implies that there's care, right? So anything that there's this engagement with, of connecting, conversing, it shows, okay, hey, I love you. I want to know more about you. Even if there's a decision like, I wish I didn't know that later, which definitely is part of the creative process of looking in. So what is an origin story? My definition is an origin story is really the tale of how you've become who you are. And they're really, if you look at like the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell coined this, and he was kind of in line with Carl Jung, who looked really deep at archetypes and depth psychology and unconscious and conscious realms, and so much delicious, really psychological, esoteric stuff. Joseph Campbell talked about the hero's journey, and that really was like a template or a map for what every human goes through. Every single human is living a set of experiences that are going to be very unique. Mine is very unique, and yours is very unique, Lindsay, like everybody here. But all of us have similar themes, qualities, and experiences that we're going to move through. And the hero's journey really coins that in a very simplistic way in 3 parts. We're talking about like a departure or a descent, initiation, return, and then like coming full circle. So I digress on that so quickly. I love it. I've done more research on it. I love it so much because it fits every culture across the globe. Every human is a living hero. So an origin story is really creating a map similar to the hero's journey, but in a more catered, personalized way, to look back at how you've become who you are. Because the stories that we tell shape how we see ourselves and how we live our lives. So in looking back in very specific, intentional, strategic ways, which is what the method does for you, the Claim Your Origin Story method, you have the possibility of seeing yourself in new perspectives and making new choices. Not only moving forward, but actually healing can happen then looking back. So it's a very engaging process that happens through connecting with self. There's 4 pillars of the process. Looking back to then be able to leap forward, lean forward, or lead forward. And that's where, it's really instrumental for anybody who's in business and already in a leadership role.
Oh my gosh. It's bringing back this flooding of memories because I worked with you on 2 separate occasions. And the first time was when I was still fully engulfed in my beauty counter business, when I had first hired your sister to help me and I think this is really important because my intention was to blow up and expand my beauty counter business and just really scale it. And there was a lot of growth that happened during that time. And you helped me. You helped me with my website, right? This was my first time getting a website up and helped me craft my about me through my origin story. And it really supported me in understanding where I came from, right? Where I am now and where I'm going. But what happened is things just kind of started to break down. And I realized through that process with you that was a stepping stone. It was a piece of my journey and it wasn't the end all. It wasn't my true life's work. And I'm even getting emotional talking about it because if I would have kept pushing and forcing and like trying to fit myself in this box, I wouldn't be here in this moment with this level of awareness and like truly waking up every day, loving what I do, knowing that it's still ever expanding and evolving. And so I want to thank you for that. And I also want to ask you, because I know the process, and maybe it's shifted a little bit, but I've never had somebody take me through a process the way that you did and how simple it was to share. Like I felt like I was talking to my best friend, to God, and a therapist all at the same time. Like where I just was so you can quote that if you want.
Literally thinking, I'm so glad this is being recorded because it's so much fun.
Because I didn't feel there was no, and I didn't know you, right? Like I knew obviously that I knew who you were and I trusted Sasha, but it just felt really easeful to share a lot of parts of myself. And what I noticed is I would share parts of myself and I would even say like, I'm not ready to share this with the world, but it was so supportive so that you could also connect the dots. So I don't know if there's anything that you want to share with the community of your process and why you do, like there's a strategy and an intention behind kind of pulling out the shadow and the pain and how all of that has hidden messages and codes and right, the heroine's journey, right? Like the origin story, there's an arc. there's a lot that happens on the way to the ascension process, which I believe ascension is the deeper we go, the more we ascend. I think that humanity's kind of got it a little bit mixed up and we're coming out of that. And it's really that connection with self. So yeah, anything you want to express related to that, the process and why you do what you do and why it's important to go there.
And thank you so much it's really humbling. It's humbling to hear how me showing up in this process and both of us being willing to get intimate and connect and show up with our strengths and our gifts and our vulnerabilities births this next spiral for you. And it's like the hero, it gets blurry. Why can't I do it? It's a spiral.
Okay.
My Zoom started doing that and I can't
visualize the spiral.
It's the spiral. And that's so much of what this process is. This method, the Claim Your Origin Story method, is one path for how to get more intimately connected with yourself and to see your life, past, present, and future, from a variety of perspectives. So there is more choice, so there's more confidence, so there's more ease, so there's more clarity, maybe so there's more creativity. And what you said about, past experiences, past phases of your life, Lindsay, about like forcing, if I kept forcing, it's like, this is about pausing the pressure. And that can be really effing scary. To pause and to reflect and to say, okay, I'm going to look inward. I'm going to look back, because as much as there's a desire to know, right? I want to know who I am. I want to know the truth. I want to know why that happened. I want to know why I'm on this planet, all these big questions. Then there's that pause, that space between asking the question and getting answers. It's like, what if I get an answer I don't want to hear? What if it means I really fucked up in my life? Excuse me. I knew I was going to do that. I was attempting. What if I knew
all words are welcome in this space.
I've already like 4 times gone, pause before swearing. There can be so much tenderness and terror, depending on what's going on internally in looking back. And so part of what this process is designed to do is to soften where there's been so much shame and create spaciousness so that confidence can come more easily, communication can happen more clearly, and there can be just kind of neutrality, if not pleasantness. I'm going to go back briefly to share some of how this evolved, because I think it's important. I have a background, I've dealt with a lot of addiction in my life. I have a background in addiction, recovery, and I worked as a therapist in a homeless shelter and in a treatment center.
I didn't know that. Now I know why it was like I was talking to my
That's it. So I'm like, okay, so some of that stayed, right? This was I worked as a therapist for a few years, and I continued to say before I went and got my master's, I know I don't want to be a therapist. That was the only consistent thing I said. The only consistent thing. And I had someone very close to me hold the mirror up and say, the only thing you're saying is I don't want to be a therapist. That's probably exactly what you're designed to do. And that's where I went. And it led me to where I am. And perfect, a major phase of my life. When I worked at this rehab, I was given space every day to fill time for the clients. And I created this autobiography of addiction process, which is like almost like the original Claim Your Origin story. And it was with the intention of seeing how something evolved, what need it was serving, the purpose it held, where it led, exposing some of the purpose and pain, like seeing where there were strengths trying to come to the surface, where they had been really masked by unloving, compulsive behavior. In addiction, it's gritty. Not everybody's journey is that way. Some people have much more kind of free, like float along, more complacent living. I don't know many people like that really, but I know it happens. So what that served at that period of time was I got to lead from the front by looking at my own experience through really painful periods up to that point, and then rise up to see how they had shaped me into who I currently was. They also cast a vision for me moving forward of what really mattered. And it connected me to the spark in me that said, I must write, even if I think I'm horrible at it. If I'm insecure, if I'm never going to market it, it was not about that. So fast forward, all of us, I see everybody, like the clients that I had, the people close to me, people that I had really intimate conversations with, everybody is a hero. Everybody is choosing something heroic every single day, whether it's visible to somebody else or not. Some people getting out of bed and putting regular clothes on, getting dressed, picking up the phone, getting fresh air, posting something on social media, not going on their phone, right? Like, there's these choices that are made every single day that are heroic because they require courage, they require self-trust, they require saying yes to some invisible force that's asking to be trusted, right? Take it, move on. And until there is reflection, it's pretty difficult to connect with all of these invisible kind of magical, like you called the golden threads that are woven through our life already. Without reflecting, there may not be a clear direction forward. So the 4 pillars of the Claim Your Origin Story process: direction, connection, expression, reflection. They provide this foundation that anybody could benefit from, because when we look inside, we awaken. Like Jung says, he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens. And then it can be used to create content and build a business or write a book or get clear on a big life decision of I'm a yes for this or I'm a no for this. It can be used in really practical, tangible ways, but it's intangibly, potentially really life-changing.
Oh my gosh, there was so much gold there. Where do I even want to go? Oh my goodness. And I really want a presence that also what I'm hearing from you, is the courage of showing up every day and, how the mundane is the majority of our life and how that's the sweet spot is like through this journey of reflection, we begin to recognize the magic and the miracle of getting out of bed, because I am a successful entrepreneur. I love myself. This is the best I've ever felt in my life. And I still have those days where I don't want to get out of bed. And I say this is probably not the first time I've said this on the podcast and in this group, because that's the level of intimacy that the world is craving right now, where we feel alone and separate, and that nobody else has this pain. Yes, it's our own individuated lens, but we have all, like, that is what I know in even your journey, from what I know of what you've expressed and shared intimately and in public containers. Any time I intimately connect in with my own clients or with colleagues or in leadership containers or at retreats or ceremony, it is just so palpable, the pain that we experience in this human form. And that the reason why I love what you do is because it moves us out of victim,
Mm.
which is a necessary process of like, why me, and the hurt and the pain that's so necessary, into like, what is like gonna propel me into, because I do believe from an evolutionary standpoint, that's why we chose to be here. That's what I believe. And that is why it's scary. And that's why we can't do it alone. Like, I would have never written my own origin story. I shouldn't say never, but I probably would have resisted it for a very long time, which is why I call in that support. And this is why it's so important to reflect back. Like, yes, I'm successful and I love being alive. And I still have those moments of massive depression and self-doubt and fear. And who am I? And I love those parts of myself. So I just want to thank you for normalizing, right? Like, this is it. And this is why it's so scary, because the journey of all of that reflection brings up a lot, but it's so required to liberate ourselves into what's next. And so the invitation is like, do you want to keep talking about it, or do you actually want to live your dharma? Like, do you actually want to transmute your karma into your dharma? Like, do you actually want to take that aligned action? Because that is my zone of genius, is like really calling people forward in their highest timeline and their potentiality. And you like, and I can't do what you do. I don't even want to attempt it. Like, it's like scares me to even be like, what, to, hold space in this. Yeah. Right. And that's why I love the feminine, and I love this, yeah, like, there's support, and you don't have to do it alone. Like, if we all are in our individuated zone of genius, if we all can just focus on, what am I here to do? Who am I here to be? That's all we need to do. That's literally it. Can you just authentically self-express while making mistakes and getting messy and falling on your face and failing forward and continuing to come back to, who am I now? What is this? What is my truest self-expression? And then it becomes so simple, because then all these beautiful beings pop up that, again, are human and screw up all the time. I love my screw ups because I know I'm evolving, and normalizing that. And then you just have this amazing supportive container. And I'm getting fired up talking about it, because this is the world that I envision, of like, oh yeah, you're ready for your origin story. I've got a sister for you. Boom. Oh yeah. Right. Like, you want to get into your body and feel your feelings and self-express, right? Like, I'm the gal for you. So I just, I don't know if there's anything you want to touch on there, but the piece that is coming through in this moment that we talked about, I know before this recording, is this is truly for anybody, because this is about transformation and finally moving from, why is this happening to me, to what is the gift in this? And so on your website, you talk about, entrepreneurs and artists and creatives, but this is for anyone. This is literally for anyone. If you're like, all right, I want to actually like know why all of these things are happening and what I can do with it. Right.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is for seekers, right? Like, anyone who's listening to this, like a seeker who has found, who's found, right? Who's found the sparkle, and it's continuing. Because it's like, we seek and we find, we seek and we find, we seek and we find, again and again and again and again and again. Rinse and repeat. It's the rinse and repeat I'll take over and over again.
Yeah.
That and going to yoga.
And seeking just for the sake of seeking, without needing to know anything. Like that's where I'm living now. And it's like, oh, that feels so good where you get to a point where you just are excited to seek for the pure joy and like the curiosity. Right.
Yes, and gosh, I think to different parts of life where that felt so frightening. So frightening to like air quote
Totally.
admit that it's like, I'm curious. Like when people would ask me who I am, I dreaded that question. I dreaded that
Mm.
question. I dreaded it. People are asking me, who are you and what do you do? I'm like, are you asking how I make money? Are you asking what lights me up? Are you asking about the stuff I'm really insecure about that I'm like nervous that you can see, even though I don't tell anybody about it? Like, what are you asking me? And I felt like an imposter in my everyday life.
Mm.
And you said painful earlier. It was extremely painful because I was seeking it with this external pressure that really is just a social norm. People ask, who are you and what do you do? What do you do for work? Do they care? Probably. I don't know. Do I care? Not really, unless they care. I care if you care. I want to know what you care about, right? Like ask different questions. So being able to be embodied instead of feel like an imposter, like that's one of the ultimate goals.
Mm. I love
You are
that.
such an example of that. And you're talking about that with embodiment, right? And acceptance. And how does that happen? It happens by getting present.
It's the only way.
The only way. And there are so many ways to get present, which is amazing.
Exactly.
Amazing. Your version of
Exactly.
presence, I don't know. I don't know if I want to sign up for that right now. Maybe in 5 minutes, right? Like that version of getting present, sure. Sure. That comes more naturally. Awesome. I'll try that. I'll get out of my comfort zone a little bit more in a few minutes with that practice of getting presence, because it's the only opportunity that happens again and again and again. And it can be different every single time. But without a willingness to get present and get embodied, we cannot be receptive to what's trying to find us and the stories that are wanting to be told through us. Because you
Mm.
and me and you and you and you and you are holding something really valuable that somebody else needs. And it's by getting embodied and present with ourselves and being willing to see ourselves differently, to change, to grow, and to accept right here, right now, that what we have to share can be available for that person who needs it. That's life changing. It doesn't have to be this big aha, sparkly dress, $5,000 check, social media post moment. It can be awesome. All of those combined, amazing. Gold sparkles, please. Like all of that. And it's those moments in the present when there's alignment and embodiment that everything makes sense. And that's why I want to be alive.
Mm.
That's it.
And this is the ticket
That's what I found.
is right. Like this is the ticket to stopping the hamster wheel of perpetual suffering, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. And I will say that again, regardless of where you're at in your journey of life's work, soul work, whatever it is, that this is a necessary piece. It's required if you want to have the antidote to your suffering, because I experience pain all the time, but I don't suffer anymore. And if I can help even one person stop the suffering that is part of the construct of this world and this society and this culture and our mind, then I'll feel like I've done it, and it's just my wish for the world. And so I love what you're doing. I love that you said yes and that you took your pain and you continued to lean in. And I think I love having these conversations because, again, it normalizes like, I still have fear and I do it anyway. Like my little girl still comes out and is like, I don't want to be seen, or I don't want to share this thing. And there's always this next layer of like vulnerability and intimacy. And like, the book was one of them. And I do want to share that going through this process with you, which by the way, I went through it twice with Darcy. I went through it the first time around. And then my website, like I completely evolved my bit. Like it was like a quickening because I stopped resisting and you helped me again. And the book, the chapter that I wrote in this anthology was called From Rupture to Rapture, The Ecstatic Gift in Breaking Wide Open. And I didn't know most of these other women in this anthology, and reading their stories of the hero's journey, all of the origin stories, it was like the same, but different, right? This is what happened, right? This like, and it was just like puddle on the floor, right? Giving up. I mean, it's like time and time again, it's solidified, right? That we are all just walking each other home through our own individuated lens, and how important that is and how it's helping us heal. And then through that, we're being that beacon of light for others to heal as well. And there's no greater feeling in the world, which is why I don't suffer anymore, because knowing that I can contribute even just a small piece of somebody saying yes to themselves, like, taking the risk, leading with the heart. Love is a risk. No wonder it's so scary, but it feels like this is the time where people are craving it and people are being more open to sharing their past and sharing their truth. And I'm even thinking of the documentary Stutz with Jonah Hill and Limitless with Chris Hemsworth, and how my husband is even starting to see these like masculine figures and these figures in Hollywood that are talking about it. Like, when I made this level of money, I still was unhappy. Jim Carrey talks about it in some of his documentaries. That is it. It's the journey. And you help, Darcy, you help us get clarity on the journey and get us out of the why me and feeling isolated and feeling like nobody will ever understand and having to keep it inside, and allowing that story to be somebody else's miracle of like that small beacon of hope of, I can do this. Like if she did it, I can do it too. If he did it, I can do it too. So is there anything, you have something fun and exciting to share, but is there something like just a small practical piece that somebody could just start to kind of reflect, and maybe just like an introductory part of like, where does one even start in exploring that? And maybe it is even addressing the fear, or maybe it's even creating the container to allow whatever gets to come through. But what would you suggest is kind of the first step if somebody wanted to kind of start to go there on their own and just get a little curious?
Absolutely. I am. It's so exciting to be alive and to be aligned with people like you in conversations like this. And it makes all of the other periods where things felt so misaligned make so much sense. It's like the life whispering, like future self was yelling. Life whispers. My future self yelled. She goes, just keep going. It's gonna be good. You've got this.
Like, we get paid to do this. Like, yes, please. If you want to get paid to do what you love, like, this is one of the first steps.
And yes, and with that, yes, is being a sacred witness to ourselves is one of the most important stepping stones to being able to be that for others, to be a sacred witness, to be a guide, to be compensated, right? If that's the evolution it takes, which that is the exchange, sales is service, we got money, right? So learning how to be a sacred witness to ourselves is kind of a first step. And you guide process, Lindsay, with like getting present and being embodied and how to do that. So for anybody listening, like tap into the resources that you already have is my invitation to get connected to the moment. Find someone you trust, that you know, that you like, that you've heard, go through meditation, have an embodiment practice, get still. Take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the nose. First in through the nose and out through the mouth. It comes more naturally to most people. Then what I want to have to offer as a invitation, like it's like you're welcome to my home. I'm opening the door. My first, like, you want a glass of water, you want to take off your shoes, you want a blanket to get cozy, whatever. That's what normally happens. Watch out, a dog's going to jump on you. What I'd like is to invite you to find a notebook or a piece of paper and a pen. If you insist on using technology, use it. iPad, laptop, but really, like, grab a notebook, grab some paper, pen or a pencil. Create an environment where you can sit for 1 to 10 minutes. Make it cozy if you want to be cozy. I like this mug a friend from England sent me. Trust your heart and follow your dreams. I love the shape. It makes me happy. I can have cold or hot in it. I get that. I get set up. And on this one sheet of paper, write a list of timestamp moments or before and after experiences. These are going to be memories, phases of life, snapshot instances that come to mind. When I met my dog Nova is one of them. Did not plan on meeting her. It's a timestamp moment. Holding hands with my grandmother the last time I saw her. Seeing my niece for the first time. Looking in the mirror and crying and not looking away.
Oof.
Right? Timestamp moments. Do they matter to anybody else? Not until I tell them when I'm connected to my heart, which is coming. More of my stories will be shared when it's aligned, appropriate, when it feels good. But it starts by writing, get connected. And what are some of my timestamp moments? Where have there been before and after experiences that want to be expressed or seen? And write them down. Simple.
I love that. And I'm going to do that myself. And this is where student is always teacher and teacher is always student. And there's always something new that gets unlocked when you do practices like this. And I just want a presence that I want to acknowledge that in a world that wants us to keep moving and going, and there's always the next thing, like this is a requirement, right? The presence, the stillness is a requirement for all that you're desiring, right? So it's almost like taking the first step of 1,000 is always the hardest thing. So if you can, at least tomorrow is the full moon, would be a beautiful time to have this ritual, the first full moon of the new year. When this is launching, it'll be after the full moon for the podcast, but it doesn't matter. Like, again, portal days, we're going to it doesn't matter. Eclipses, equinoxes, New Year's, right? Solar returns. It doesn't matter. Like, those are supportive, but you can create any sort of sacred ritual again in any moment of any day. So honor yourself. And I love what you said about the more that you can get out of the day-to-day. So if you're on your computer and you're generally working on your computer, it's helpful and supportive to change your environment, to sit somewhere new, to go out in nature, to go to a coffee shop, right? That's why the notepad and paper, all of it helps you get out of the logical mind and the structure and the needing to be perfect. And I would even encourage you to write them upside down and all around, or maybe like add graphics and symbols and colors. And this is actually the gold that's going to help unlock what's next for you. So I invite you all to do that. And if you want to keep going and you're like, all of this is just feeling like a holy yes and a sacred yes in your heart, Darcy has something so fun, and I believe it's free, in the near future, coming up, I believe next week when this is launching on the podcast later in the week. So go ahead and share what you've got going on in your world as a free give.
Thank you so much, beloved. Yes, so Claim Your Origin Story. We have an online retreat happening, and tickets are on me. It's a free event. It's going to be instead of being live, so more people can RSVP, yes, it's January 13th, 14th, and 15th. When you opt in, you'll get your virtual ticket sent, and then a video with me will be sent workshopping 3 days in a row. You can watch it within a couple of day period. So whether you can join live or not, doesn't matter. Once it comes to your email, you'll have access to it. And this online retreat is where like-hearted visionaries like us from all across the world are coming together because they're saying, yes, I'm ready to experience more momentum in my life and possibly my business. What we're going to be doing here is 3 days in a row with me, connecting with your heart, connecting with your vision, your mission, and creating space for yourself to hear and see and speak your stories in new ways. We're also going to be discovering the strength in your stories that are showing up, like with this assignment, this invitation for you I just shared. And then I'm going to give some very simple steps for how to step into the next stories that are wanting to be expressed, told, and embodied in really empowering ways. So it's going to be a full 3 days. You are invited, the more the merrier. And this is a premier event for the Claim Your Origin Story method.
I love it. So yes, it's claimyouriginstory.com, which we'll make sure we put in the show notes and in the comments of this live stream, and all of the ways you can, of course, reach out to myself and or Darcy on her website. But I'm going to be signing up. I'm going to be tuning in. And I love that the accessibility is there where this can be done in your time, right? This can be done in your time, in your container, to allow for the spaciousness. And if you're in my community, you know that I am not one to be rushing along with the rest of the world. So hopefully you have the spaciousness, and this could be exactly what you need to kind of determine, right? What's next? Oh, Issa's watching. She's saying, love you, ladies. Issa and I had a beautiful call earlier. Thank you for watching. Beautiful. So is there anything else that you want to leave this beautiful community with? Some final thoughts.
Yes. If there's that quiet or loud, critical internal voice that's whispering or screaming, you're not worth knowing, you don't have anything to say, how could you actually build a business? All the fears, the judgments, the criticisms. I want to speak to that part right now. Say, I hear you, I'm witnessing you, and I want to know more about you. And you are worth knowing. And to the person holding that inner dialogue, you are a fucking hero, and it's time to connect with your heroic adventure, not only past, present right here, and forge a new path into the future. However you do that, you are invited, you are welcomed into these communities. And thank you for showing up like you do.
So powerful. Oh my gosh, this was such a delicious way to kick off the new year. Like, yes, please. And I love how it was so aligned. And I think I shared with Darcy, but this is where I have no shame in my game sharing that this is my first official. So I've had 22 podcast episodes, almost 6 months, and I've been repurposing a lot of old content. And this is how my saboteur and inner child and inner critic and the parts of me that were afraid decided to do this so that I could just start. And I love how Darcy and I connected this week, and it was an immediate full body, like, bring her on the podcast. And it just happened, and it was fluid. And here we are. And we did have a little bit of a time snafu, but that's because we're in retrograde right now, probably, and New Year's. And we're still in that like amoeba phase following the holidays and into the new year. But that's where we just flow. We're like, oh yeah, whoopsie, let's try this again. And nothing felt like a disruption. Like, even that was like, oh yeah, great. And I just want to remind you all, and that's why the transparency of people like Darcy and myself, beings like Darcy and myself, of like kind of taking you behind the curtain of what that's like and what it's like to start something and launch something and to share your story and to go deep and to be vulnerable and expose yourself in such a way. But I mean, when you're on the other side, it's so euphoric. And to hear how you're supporting people and to be witness and to know how good you feel lighter. When people know who you are and there's no more masks and you stop compartmentalizing yourself, you feel lighter. And that is my prayer for you. So I am so excited to have you join, Darcy. I will be tuning in. Thank you, love, for sharing your heart and your wisdom and, being a therapist, God, and a best friend all in one body, because, we are all a fractal of God. So thank you for taking that humbly, but it's truly what it felt like. And would love to know what's opening up for you. You can feel free to reach out to Darcy or myself and continue the conversation. Much love.